on gap schemes. The combo on backside of duo. I believe, and I truly believe in the Gallop. When I talk about knocking over that hip when you playing those man gap and a half type D tackles. Now, understand this. I'm not talking about, we don't Gallop D linemen that play gaps. So if there's a D lineman that's lining up in the gap and firing off in the gap, we don't Gallop him. We don't want to knock him over, because I get that a lot. I've had coaches come in and say, because we're trying to use the Gallop, but it's not working. I say, well, this doesn't work on gap players. You understand what I'm saying? This works on man attack players. So basically, if you got a defensive line that's just trying to shoot a gap, we can have double team him to 1975. But when you got a D lineman that's attacking the man to avoid combos, that's when I want to Gallop. I mean, I can go through the deal. We talk about first step, angle to the ground, feet down before contact, power comes from back foot, all that kind of good stuff. I'll let people take a picture of it. You know, we talk about aiming point. We're going to aim at the hip. Want to make sure I near knee glaze the inside, outside leg of the defender. You know, all that kind of cool stuff. Everybody good on that? All right, good. So same thing. We talk about a man attack. So we talk about D tackles that attack the man and him going through the hip to knock the hip over on the contact. And I'm just practicing this part of it. So basically gaining ground on the first step and bringing the power off the back foot through the hip to talk the defender in the other gap. I was tripping that day standing on that side. I almost got my hand foot. Same thing. Gain ground on the first step, coming to the hip to knock it over on man attack players. Because the reality is when a D lineman attacks like that, you can't half and half. And some people try to ask the guard to step wider, but then that stops the power from the second step. So I don't subscribe to that philosophy, but I think this is an effective way, whether you're backside of zone, gap schemes. I think this is the best way to do it when you got those man attack players. Same thing. We're going to gain ground with the first step and we get into that hip. Get into that hip, and we're not going to do too much to our own guys, but we want to make sure we get the aiming point and the power from the back foot down to go through the hip. I put this one here because he's too high. Sometimes they shorten that first step and they get to that shoulder. We do not want to hit the shoulder. We want to make sure we're on the hip. Also, I put this right here because there are times where you go to Gallop and they don't get knocked over. So sometimes the guard is expecting him to knock him over and he doesn't. If that doesn't happen, you have to train the guard to make sure he snaps his eyes in that gap. So basically, you'll watch him, doesn't happen. I got to make sure he's visually looking in this gap, no matter if he gets a knockover or not. Does that make sense? He still has to protect the A gap. A lot of those guards get so used to that they stop looking in that gap. That'll burn you. So making sure we're training them to look in that gap. Now, this is when they first report in. We're working the same steps, the Gallop steps, and just talking about gaining ground and bring that power off the back foot. Same thing. Same drill. Same deal. We add the backer just in case it's a quick overflow backer. Same stuff, working that same drill, that Gallop drill.